recognize Mr. Garcia for 5 minutes of comment on the amendment and the nature of the substitute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we should certainly, I think, be embarrassed to be here today. This is a complete sham impeachment. I also like to point out that the previous speaker on this committee has been spending a lot of her time actually fundraising off of this impeachment effort, and so the fact that she's posturing to taking it seriously, I think, is quite a joke as well. Now, in this Congress, which is the least productive that we've had, as we all know, since the 1930s, we've only passed 23 laws, and most of those, of course, have been generally terrible laws. But when the extreme majority cannot pass laws, they resort to political stunts and stunt impeachments, the one against the president and certainly the one here today. Now, we have heard over and over from constitutional scholars, including Republicans, that there's no basis for this impeachment. And I want to take a moment to correct the record on a couple things. I've heard my Republican colleagues claim that Trump secured the border and somehow President Biden opened it. Let's be clear and review the facts. The spike in migration started under Donald Trump. Border Patrol apprehensions actually tripled in the last 8 months of the Trump presidency, rising from more than 21,000 in May 2020 to over 71,000 that December as he was leaving office. So the migration spike started under Donald Trump, and we should make that very clear. Now, today, Secretary Mayorkas is also dealing with the fallout of historic crises happening across Latin America. Venezuela has completely collapsed and is in crisis. Ecuador is dealing with a historic gang crisis. Cuba and Haiti are also facing enormous challenges as well. The whole region is struggling to recover from extreme weather, droughts, and COVID-19. Meanwhile, our historic economic recovery in the U.S. has created a demand for workers. Now, all of this impacts the border. But we know that's not all. The majority blames Secretary Mayorkas for his policies for the surge of people coming here to seek asylum, but they won't accept any legislative proposals or funding to deal with the problem when the president and the secretary offer them. Speaker Johnson has told Fox News multiple occasions now that he's taking his orders from Trump on the border. And he just said recently, as of today, that he won't even take up the Senate deal. Donald Trump speaks about immigrants with the same rhetoric that Hitler did, claiming that immigrants like me and my family, and I quote, pollute the blood of this country. He wants chaos, and he's admitted he even would like to see a recession happening this year. But I want to remind the public and the majority that Donald Trump...
Will the gentleman yield?
I will not yield. I want to remind the public that Donald Trump and House Republicans also have their own ideas for the border. So let's review the majority's border ideas that they've actually presented. Here they are. Donald Trump actually has said that he wants to build alligator moats along the border. That's one of his incredible ideas. Another idea that Donald Trump has promoted is he actually wants to electrify the border fence and maybe even put some spikes on the border. That's another Donald Trump and MAGA majority border idea. Another idea, which I'm not sure how well it would go, is he wants to actually bomb northern Mexico with missiles. That's another Trump idea. And finally, I think one of the ones that I think is the most grotesque is suggestions that instead we should maybe just shoot migrants in the legs as they cross the border. So once again, the Donald Trump and MAGA plan is alligator moats, bombing northern Mexico, shooting migrants in the legs, and electrifying the fence and putting spikes on them. That is the Donald Trump border plan. And so, again, we are here today with these horrific ideas being presented constantly by the former president. This is all about trying to get Donald Trump reelected. Donald Trump himself is saying he wants no solutions this year out of the Congress. And Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden continue to offer solutions every day and are ready to actually talk about real immigration and border solutions in this country. And with that, I yield
Mr. Garcia, will you yield for a clarifying question?
Sure.
Can you clarify what you mean by the analogy that you just said that Donald Trump was Hitler?
Well, when you say that you want to pollute, when immigrants are polluting this country, that to me, and the blood of this country, that is absolutely reminiscent of things that Adolf Hitler said. And in fact, his imagery, the way he supports white nationalism, the way he supports white supremacy, and those kind of comments are completely offensive to immigrants and hopefully to all Americans in this country.
So just to be clear, you were drawing an analogy between Donald Trump saying he is like Hitler.
I'm drawing an analogy that the rhetoric that Donald Trump uses is very much the rhetoric and the type of rhetoric that Adolf Hitler used.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize Mr. Pfluger for 5 minutes of discussion on the amendment and the nature of a substitute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it's a sad day that we're here. I don't think anybody takes any pleasure in being here. In fact, this is really the last resort that our founders intended to use an impeachment as a check and a balance. I personally have wrestled with the appropriate congressional response to what has been a willful refusal to comply with the law, to adhere to congressional directives, and more importantly, to secure a homeland. The failure to secure the border has been so significant, so catastrophic, so egregious that Congress must now use its power to provide accountability. And we must be the check and the balance against such an extremely egregious breach of the public trust. You know, families around the country have lost confidence in the secretary, in the government, in the administration. I show you this picture right here of the Tambunga family. This is a button that the Tambungas sat right there when Secretary Mayorkas was testifying. The 71-year-old grandmother was killed. The 7-year-old granddaughter was killed by a human trafficker doing 100 miles an hour in West Texas, carrying 11 illegal aliens, evading capture, and tragically slammed into their vehicle, instantly killing them. For Maria and Amelia's sake, if not this effort, then what? She sat, the daughter of Maria sat with Secretary Mayorkas and said, this is not political, we want you to secure the border, and yet nothing has been done. We passed H.R. 2 in May of last year. When you go to the border, when you talk to Border Patrol, when you talk to ICE agents, what they tell you is that there are no consequences. That the Secretary has willfully refused to enforce the laws that are on the books. And I asked rhetorically to the other side, if not this effort, then how do you hold accountability? Do you think that this has been a success? We offer these articles of impeachment today, a willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law, an egregious breach of public trust, because we do take seriously our oath. We do take seriously the check and the balance. There's been 3 years that the other side has had to make a change, and they haven't. And this is the last resort, which is why this is a sad day. The other side is going to say this is policy difference. No, it's not. These are not policy differences. This is a debate. This is not a debate about taxes or spending. This is a debate about following the law, which the executive branch should be doing, and yet they're not. Do you remember the 53 people that were killed in a tractor trailer south of San Antonio in July of last year? They were locked up. A smuggler left them to rot and perish in a tractor trailer. That's what this is about. The Secretary has done nothing, has absolutely done nothing to make our country more secure. He has weakened us in every single case.
Will the gentleman yield for a quick question?
Just a couple of weeks ago, Secretary Mayorkas sat right there next to Director Wray, and I asked a question of the 300 people who have matched the terror watch list. Director Wray, are there still people at large in this country that you know match the terror watch list, but you don't know where they are? Director Wray answered, yes, there are people still at large that match the terror watch list. Secretary Mayorkas, I asked him, do you have a policy to detain people that match the terror watch list? And he would not answer in the affirmative. That's why we're here today, because he has willfully refused time and time again to enforce the laws on the books. We've given many solutions. The Senate hasn't taken them up. It's this type of behavior that brings us here.
Will the gentleman yield
This is
for
an
a question?
extreme position.
Will the gentleman yield
position-
for a question?
No, I will not. My silence to you was the answer. The extreme position is that of my colleague completely disregarding a mother who was here just a few weeks ago that lost her kids to fentanyl. That's why we're here. I've got to think that on this other side of the aisle, that you think that this is a complete and utter failure to secure the homeland. That's why Republicans are here, and I hope that you will join in calling it out and doing the right thing. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.